should I get a HELOC, and can you break down an example for us
Mm-hmm.
how I can actually pay my home off faster?
Mm-hmm. All right, first question is should. I hate to use the word depends because, people just want straightforward answers like yes or no. It's not that cut and dry. So if I could make it as cut and dry as possible, is if you are cash flow positive, meaning you don't have to necessarily be perfect and master a budget. I don't have my budget mastered. I've shared with you multiple times where we've got all these subscriptions for stuff where we pay Hulu, DirecTV, and YouTube. It's like, why are we paying 3 people for one service or 3 companies for one service? So you don't have to be perfect, but you have to make more money than you spend. So that's first and foremost. Number 2 is you have to make more money than you spend in relation to your debt load. So let me give you an example. Let's say, somebody makes, $8,000 a month, right? But they spend $4K a month. Debt load is, let's just say, $300,000, right? Just shooting from the hip here. That's their current mortgage balance, or all debts. Okay, well, this scenario works. However, we've had clients that have, let's say, $2.5 million house, and let's say they make $100,000 a month, which in my opinion, that's not enough to buy a $2.5 million house. Everybody else would tell you that is. Yes, you could qualify, but doesn't mean you should, right? And then, true story, this is what they were spending. So they've got a 10K margin here, but on $2.5 million versus a 4K margin here on $300,000. I take this client over that client any other day. So it's not an income situation. It's not a tax bracket that you need to be in. It's not necessarily have you mastered Dave Ramsey's, what does he call it? Toddler steps. No, baby steps. It's before toddlers. Actually, it treats you worse than a toddler, baby steps. So you don't necessarily have to master that, but you need to understand how much is coming in and how much is going out and have some type of discipline over that, right? You don't have to be the most disciplined person in the world, but you need to understand that you got to resist temptation that just because you make $8,000, you don't spend $8,000. Work with inside of your budget. If you do that, then that answers the should. Yes, you should, because a mortgage is the most archaic way to finance real estate. And I say archaic because it's not really archaic, because archaic alludes to it being an old way of doing things. It's not. It's just always been called a mortgage, but the modern day mortgage looks entirely different than it did prior to 1913. Actually, if we could have 2 different versions of a mortgage and call it something different, after 1913, really 1930s and beyond, it's called a mortgage. Prior to that, guess what I would call it? A HELOC. It worked the exact same way a HELOC did. So that's all we're really doing is going back to basics. People see us on social media or events or whatever and hear me talk and they're like, this is some new thing, it's a scam or whatever, this crazy strategy. It's not new, nor is it a scam. We're just going back to basics. This is what we used to do as Americans. That's all we're trying to do is just wake people up and be like, let's go back to basics, because that worked a lot better than propping the big banks up.
So you mentioned it was similar to a HELOC in the old days.
Yes.
How does a HELOC compare to a traditional mortgage in terms of payoff speed and terms?
Yes. So one, liquidity. And this is the big benefit that people don't talk about the most when we're talking about this strategy. They like to talk math. And yes, the math works. I'll get into the math. My opinion, the biggest benefit of the HELOC is liquidity. A mortgage being a closed-end product, meaning you can't put 100% of your income into a mortgage, because once you put it in there, it's trapped. Yes, you may have paid down principal and all that, and that will speed up the process. But now when it's time to pay the utilities or eat out or go on vacation, you can't. That money's trapped. It's the open-endedness of a home equity line of credit that I think is the best benefit. And the reason why it's the best benefit is since it's liquid, money can move in and out 24/7. Now you have the confidence to put all of your income in there. Now all of your income is actually working for you. And just off on a quick tangent, I was just talking to my son about this last night. He's wanting to work 5 days a week during the summer. He's 12. And he wants to make $170 a day. And the reason why he's got very specific numbers is because he's got a very specific truck that he wants to buy when he's 16. He wants to buy a Raptor, right? Yeah. Good news is those trucks will be substantially cheaper in 4 years than they are now. So it might be achievable, but I was explaining to him, one, he's 12, so we're going through some basic math, but also some complex math that he has to learn anyways, just through school, and we homeschool. So we're working through how much you make versus how much Uncle Sam makes, how much you actually get. But one thing that kind of opened up his eyes was the power of compounding interest in investing. Because we told him, whatever you save up and what you have at the end of that 4-year run, would really be three years and a couple months because he's about to turn 13, is we will match that. And so he's like, okay, so I've got 3 summers and then I'll have this number. And I was like, yes, if you earn it and don't spend it, but your buying power is going to go down as well. Gas is going to probably go up, groceries are going to go up, all the things. Yeah, inflation. So what can you do to offset that? Not just offset it, but actually figure out a way that you can earn a month worth of salary without ever having to work. And he's like, how would I earn money without doing anything? I was like, I'm glad you asked. People do it all the time. So we broke down the math of, let's say you got a 10% return. We even looked at Tesla, because over the last month, Tesla's up 48%. I'm like, imagine if your money was in Tesla and you got 48%. You've got a month and a half worth of salary and you didn't have to do anything. You were a passive investor. That's where your mind should be going. Yes, you may need to do something as far as a foundation to earn an income, but what can you do to compound that so that your money is working for you? And in a HELOC, it almost works inversely. And what I mean by that is your money is in there, so it's reducing the principal balance every single day, which reduces the interest, because a HELOC, they calculate the interest based on that day's balance. So if you go from 100 grand, you put 10 grand in there, you're at 90 grand, the bank looks at it and says, all right, we're going to charge you interest based on the balance that day. And so they come up with what's called per diem, daily interest. And then once you knock it down again, then it readjusts. A mortgage is an amortization schedule, okay? But let's go back to the liquidity. When you put every single dollar in there, because you have the comfort level of knowing that it's liquid, I can pull it out for emergencies or opportunities. So now you're giving your dollars a job, whether it's paying down interest or you deploy from the HELOC to invest to earn interest. A dollar saved is a dollar earned, right? Well, a dollar earned plus interest is even more dollars earned. So, you can play both games at the same time. So that's, in my opinion, what makes a HELOC far better than a mortgage is its liquidity nature. Now, mathematically, you get into it. Yeah, let's say somebody could, which is impossible. Let's say somebody could put 100% of their money into a mortgage. Would it pay off at a similar fashion as a HELOC? Yeah. Yeah, it would, especially if you got lower mortgage rates than you do HELOC rates, which is really hard to do in this environment. HELOC rates are lower than mortgages, if you know where to look. But all things being equal, if you did it with a mortgage, could you pay it down almost as fast as a HELOC? Yes. The reason why nobody can and won't is because of the lack of liquidity. We're Americans. We know that there's an election coming up. There's potentially a recession coming up. There could be nuclear war. Who knows? We want the liquidity. We want to feel safe. And by putting all of our money into a mortgage where it's trapped unless we refinance or sell, and both things are extremely expensive to do, try selling a house, for sale by owner, good luck, probably not going to sell, use a realtor, it's expensive. You got realtor fees, closing costs. Hey, you try to refinance, guess what? It's expensive, thousands of dollars. So that's why no one does it. But there is an alternative, and it's a home equity line of credit. So if you go to our website, Replace University, we've got all kinds of topics. But you could even bi-step all the different topics. And if you want to go specific to this topic, then just use the domain Replace Your Mortgage. And it'll take you directly to the carousel on Replace University, where we've got beginner training, we have intermediate training. Both of those are free. We don't charge anything for those courses. And there's lots of material in there, lots of information where you can prove the math for yourself. And that's what I encourage everyone to do. If you're a skeptic, this is third grade math. You don't have to be some grand wizard mathematician in order to figure this out. This is simple third grade math. Just run the math yourself. And that's what the beginner and intermediate courses will help you do, is understand the guidelines, the regulations between the two, between a mortgage and a HELOC, how to do the math yourself. We've got a calculator on there that'll do it for you. If you don't trust that one, go to another bank's calculator and do the same thing. Pull up your iPhone, you'll do the same thing. You'll get the same numbers. Because we've had that before too. It's like, that calculator's baked, man. They got something in there. It's a little different. Dude, we got it from Dinkytown, just like Navy Federal Credit Union got it. Now, we've got more complex calculators that one will come out with that's more consumer friendly, but the ones on the back end that really dials it in per day. But yeah, we get those folks. And I get it. Sounds too good to be true. But again, that's what they said when the modern day mortgage came out. It's like, oh, now I could extend it out over 30 years instead of 10 or 15? Nah, sounds too good to be true. Now it's the norm. It's what everybody does. Yep. So if you want to go deeper on understanding HELOCs versus mortgages, then just go to replaceyourmortgage.com. Everyone can sign up for a free account. You're going to get beginner and intermediate courses absolutely for free. I don't know how many hours, tons of hours of education, baseline foundational education, so that you understand and you can kind of do this math on your own. So that's 100% free, and I encourage everybody to do it. It doesn't cost you a penny. All it costs you is your email address. And guess what we're going to do with that? We're going to email you.
Give you value.
Yeah.